What?
That's the other thing. Some of them are using it to mask their cheating also. Yeah. So it's you can use it for your phone. Because in Kansas City, you pronounce it should translate. I'm Shannon. Nice to meet you. I have students sometimes. I don't know how they do it, but they forget to turn it back. So I had to.
Yes, that's what I already have.
Okay, I'm calling this meeting to order at 3:01. Okay, I'm going to ask that our audience be ready. Thank you. Okay. The first thing on our agenda is the call to order, which I did, and now the land acknowledgement. I'm going to ask everyone please respect the land acknowledgement with your silence. Before we begin, we believe it's important to open our meeting by acknowledging the indigenous land that we share. Pasadena City College is a learning community within the indigenous homelands of people who have been known as the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians of the Shi'ishikwanga Village and Keech Nation. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this land on which we gather. We honor all indigenous people past, present, future, and their continued survival and contributions to our society. We also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that this country would not exist without the free enslaved labor of Black people. We share these acknowledgments to raise awareness about histories that are too often erased or forgotten, to recognize our place in this history, and to affirm our commitment to social justice, systemic change, and anti-racism. And I want to let the Senate know today, I am under the weather, so we're going to try and get through this quickly. Okay, next, public comment. Do you have public comment?
Yes. The public comment is submitted by Diana Little, and I will be reading the comment on her behalf. I am Diana Little, a licensed psychotherapist in Glendale, California. I'm writing to support all students and staff who stand opposed to the mandates for forced COVID vaccinations, masking, and testing. I understand the extreme fear and early compliance given to these measures. We were all terrified and believed what we were told. But times have changed and we must move past our ignorance to know what we know now. We must correct our course immediately before more harm is done. We now know that these shots have zero efficacy for the prevention of transmission of this virus, which, by the way, has a survival rate of 99.98% overall for anyone under 82 years old, and has real treatment options that were ignored while pushing dangerous experimental gene therapies they call vaccines. We also now know that masking and social distancing are equally useless in fighting this virus. We know now that natural immunities are the strongest way to move forward. This has always been the case. Regardless of these facts, forced compliance to any medical procedure is medical tyranny, and forcing these experimental shots is in violation of the Nuremberg Code. Informed consent was never even an option. These mandates are fascist authoritarianism on action. Medical mandates violate personal sovereignty. Every individual has the right to privacy and medical authority over their own body, their choice. The fact that we now know these shots, mask, and isolation have done far more harm than good, notwithstanding, this is an outrage and must stop now. Stand up for their rights and all of our rights. Thank you, Diana Little, LMFT.
So glad we know that.
Okay, the next public comment is from Melissa Michelson.
Okay, thank you. It's been getting a little bit oppressive in here. Going by the definition of oppression in PCC's anti-racist policy draft, it's the use of power to disempower, marginalize, or silence. That said, the bullying, aggressive, self-righteous, and hypocritical behavior in this room has to please stop. Whether it's the Senate President calling an email of information I sent from faculty to other faculty garbage without supporting her claim with examples, something we urge our own students to do, or drowning out my voice as I was finishing my public comment on March 13th when I alerted this body that our elections committee chair had lied during her report. I was just 4 seconds past the 3-minute mark. Robert's rules says, under no circumstances should the chair attempt to drown out a disorderly member. either by her own voice or the gavel. So technically she was out of order. Whether treating me like a child at the last meeting saying I was being warned. Why? Because I had asked a simple question that never got answered, and I asked twice. I simply asked the secretary if the 4 comments attacking me in the faculty newsletter had been submitted after I had put in my own request to speak, and instead of a simple yes or no answer, for some reason, she was abrasive and defensive. One of our meeting norms is to assume good intentions. How come the secretary didn't get a warning to follow our meeting norms? You, in your positions of power, are not above it all. You are not over-scrutinized, but you certainly do over-scrutinize others, like the Adjunct Affairs Committee. We have 23 committees, but that is the one that's forced to give reports at every single meeting here. You, like we all are at PCC, are accountable. Calls for clarification, transparency, or equity in this room should not be met with hostility. Professional ethics policy AP 3050 says that faculty need to, quote, accept responsibility appropriate to your positions and to, quote, respect others and treat everyone with respect and dignity, recognizing that disagreement and informed debate are commonplace in an academic setting. The selective, inequitable treatment has to stop. At the last meeting, when I attempted to pass a handout out for the benefit of the bylaws chair and for my fellow senators to follow along easier, both the parliamentarian and president shut me down. Why exactly? What was the problem? Other senators had passed out papers in here before, and nothing was said about that. First of all, this is a Public Brown Act meeting. Papers are allowed. But and also, it's not only a best practice and should be done more often, but it's another one of our meeting norms, which is to honor our colleagues' time by being efficient, effective, and on task. I'm not asking for any apology. I'm asking just to please change your behavior, stop taking things personally, be more civil, and continue developing a safe space for all of us here in this room. Thank you.
Can I make a statement?
You would have had to put your public comment in. However, yes, not during public comment, but yeah, we'll figure something out for that. Thank you.
The next comment is from Eloy Zarate, read by David Uranga on his behalf.
So where can I speak here?
You can come here or you can read it from there, whichever is better.
Okay. This is for Dr. Eloy Zarate. He can't be here today, so I wanted to speak for him. He's the history department chair. I'm the chair of political science. He's also chair of dual enrollment in PCC Rosemead. He should have been here to bring to your attention the passage of AB 928 and its potential impact to the community college programs and our students. Eloy has been working very hard, meeting with local and state elected officials to inform them of the serious consequences to our programs, to our enrollments and students. To the list of current problems with AB 928 includes lifelong learning and self-development, a current general education area that's a part of the CSU general education pattern will be removed. These courses are especially vital for the first-gen college students and our non-traditional college courses and those for disproportionately impacted population. The CSUs will keep their current CSU GE breadth that will still include Area E, lifelong learning and self-development for their first-time freshmen. But our transfer students will still be able to take these courses at our campuses. The likelihood will diminish if these courses only count toward elective units. General ed areas of math with the current IGETSI are more restricted in courses approved in this area. The CSUs have expanded the types of courses within mathematics which have removed barriers in this area for our students. This will erect barrier where progress has been made to lower them. Based on the UC Resolution 479, students will need to complete courses with a C or better. With the current CSU GE, a student can use Best Certified CSU GE with a D in some GE areas. This may lead to an increase in course repeats that get added to units counting against them for financial aid. Some students may decide to transfer without GE certification, and students may decide to not get an ADT if they need to take more units. History and political science, my field, will be affected the most by the elimination of the American institutional requirement. If this passes, U.S. history and poli-sci requirements could be deferred or eliminated for students with certain majors. And for that matter, I mean, I've been here 33 years. It's one thing to knock me out, but the young talent out there, it's a shame to debilitate them. It's my side comment. In attempts for legislation to be streamlined for students, we fail to understand the complexity of transfer and systems involved. When one system cannot be legislated, in essence, you are asking CSU that accepts the most transfer students to be more like a UC in their general education pattern and application. We trade one barrier for another, but fail to address the real reasons why students accumulate units and fail to transfer successfully or obtain a degree. Is that over?
Yes, that's it.
Can I put this in the record, or?
No.
It's in the record.
It's in the record. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm sorry, after talking to the parliamentarian lead or Meredith, did you have a point of information on comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we have been advised that public comments not for senators. That's what I remember to be. And I just feel like I really don't have time to waste here to finish fighting. So I am going to leave in protest. So that's why, thank you for the opportunity to speak out.
I believe this is a point of information. I apologize if it is not. In Melissa's comments, she mentioned that, or she said that she believes the executive board's treatment of the adjunct issues committee is unfair, or is somehow is required to, that we're required to give reports every session. We are not required to give reports every session, and she has not, to my knowledge, spoken with the adjunct issues committee about her sentiments here today. Was that a point of information? I'm sorry, okay.
Unless she has a comment on the public comment document. Do you have a point of information on his public comment?
No, but I have a point of information about all the comments being made here. I think that's out of order.
Well, they were made based on your public
I'm
comment.
making a point of order that the Senate, we don't get to respond, unfortunately, to public comments.
Duly noted.
But if a senator wants to make a point of information, our parliamentarian is the one who said that she could. And since that's his job, I'm going to listen to him. Next public comment?
Yes, next public comment is Kathy Pataras. I think I'll be reading that one. On her behalf. Dr. Vasquez and Professor Pataras would like to cordially invite you to Mindfulness Mondays, which meets each Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. via Zoom. Each week, we provide a campus-wide shared virtual space for mindful practice, contemplation, and healing. The weekly sessions are open to all of the PCC community, including students, classified staff, faculty, and administrators. During our time together, we are examining definitions of workplace burnout from a trauma-informed, holistic perspective that includes concerns for well-being of body, mind, and spirit, discuss the ways individual faculty and staff can prioritize their own psycho, socio-emotional, and environmental well-being in the face of structural pressures, and integrate the lessons into a first-person mindfulness experience, be a physical body-based activity that will include all levels, gentle seated and standing yogic movement, breathing, and meditation. PCC employees register through the Vision Resource Center using the registration link that is available in PCC events. Faculty can earn flex credit. Students can register through Zoom. We look forward to practicing with you. Next is Jennifer Holden.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Holden. I'm representing the Social Sciences Department here, but this is my private comment. I'm not a therapist, but I am a psych instructor, and I feel like we need to talk about our mental health as senators, which I followed a great comment. Encourage everyone to go to the Mindful Mondays, and also the relationship that we all have as part of a team. This has become a significantly stressful space for me, and I know from speaking with others on the Senate that I'm not alone in this. First, I'm going to address the ongoing discord here in the Senate. And second, I'm going to address a specific situation that occurred at our last meeting. And along the way, I'm going to share some information that I learned at a conference last fall regarding the current mental health climate in the field of education. First of all, in committees, people disagree. That's okay. We offer feedback and propose changes. What's been happening in this room and via email communications has gone beyond the scope of a healthy level of discourse, disagreement, and feedback, and we need to keep talking about this. I attended a conference in the fall called Struggling Brains about the process of recovery that the whole field of education is in right now. We as essential workers had to respond to constant change and chronic stress during the pandemic. Our profession underwent a complete overhaul, and we've had to support struggling students and family members along the way. At this conference, the recommendation from leaders in education, mental health, and research in education was to go easy on ourselves, to go easy on our students, and on each other during this transition. Don't double down on getting back to normal, scale back on busy work, focus on meaningful work, and don't pile on while we're all still recovering from this disruptive and traumatic period. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling like this has been a difficult couple of years as an educator. This is a recommendation at every level, from executive leadership all the way to the classroom. Teacher burnout is high, morale is down, and we are supporting a population of students with substantial social and academic challenges as a result of this pandemic. We must prioritize strategically with mental health in mind. Here in the Senate, there are things we can't scale back on, like our evolving social justice and anti-racist policies and programs. These efforts are long overdue, but what we don't need to do is scrutinize each other in the Senate with a magnifying glass right now. Our leadership has been consistently supportive and inspiring, and yet our leaders are dealing with what feels like endless criticism. Let's stay focused on our larger goals and give each other some grace. We are all on the same team here. We're all adults, and we have a lot on our agenda. We can't keep getting bogged down by criticisms. It wears on the morale of this room. Please take a pause and think it through before you comment today and at every meeting. I would hate to see it come to this, but we will use the Brown Act if we have to.
3 minutes. Thank you. Is the point of information? Okay.
It's both a point of information and a point of order. The point of information was simply to correct the comment from my fellow senator about the adjunct faculty committee. I have spoken to the chairs, but that isn't their opinion. It obviously was mine because it is my personal public comment. And also the point of order is, in my understanding from Robert's rules, the parliamentarian doesn't have the authority to decide who gets to speak or not if we're gonna suspend the rules by Robert's rules. So we as a body could decide to suspend rules and then vote. Just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Next public comment?
Next public comment is Todd Jones.
Good afternoon, Senate. I'm a resident of Pasadena. I've taken classes at PCC, and I may or may not advocate for my kids to attend classes at PCC too. I've given many public comments at the PCC Board of Trustees, and it was a YouTube video that I saw of the last Academic Senate that prompted me to come here today. Recorded for all to see is the PCC Academic Senate, where the Executive Board spares no quarter to crucify dissent. Just like with any authoritarian regime, there is an oppressed Untermenschen who cannot be allowed to spill out from their ranks. Inquiry from, request made by, or dissent expressed in time in a tag team vilification of those who seek remedy. This resident taxpayer, parent of potential PCC students, would like to see faculty and staff who will work to solve problems, who will raise the voices of the oppressed, because we cannot all be the kings and queens in a fair and just society. Thank you, and I have to leave for another meeting.
Next public comment?
Bit of information?
Yes.
Okay. At the last public meeting, adjuncts inappropriately used the words equity and social justice. And I think the terms you were going for were equality and parity, because equity and social justice are very specific terms referring to the ongoing process of reversing systemic injustice for people who are born into identities and situations and circumstances where they, where they've been enslaved, discriminated against, abused, killed. This was going to be my comments, but I feel the point makes sense here. Adjuncts have complete freedom over their identities as adjuncts, so those terms don't apply. You can't use equity and social justice or oppression to talk about your situation. And this is at the core of our PCC values. If you don't know what equity and social justice are, that is a real concern. That's a real concern that you're misusing those words. And I have a whole other thing about this, but I just figured this is a good point to talk about it. We have work to do here at PCC. We have a lot of work to do. And I'm looking forward to Carrie Boland coming in next time and talking about this with us.
Next public comment?
Public comment is Chris Palone.
Hello, I'm a retired faculty member. I live in Pasadena. I was motivated by listening to last month's Senate meeting to come and speak to you today. Like all of you, I get lots of unsolicited emails. My answer, click, click, delete. If you're not interested in reading a faculty newsletter or any other email, just delete it. As far as I can see, all the information in that document is public information, and there is still something called the First Amendment in this country. Maybe it's true that there are people who don't want you to see that information, or who are embarrassed by how much release time they've had over the years, but that's their problem. While the exposure of such information might not be popular with some, the items mentioned seemed easily enough addressed. So why does these things seem to threaten the Senate executive so deeply? Wouldn't it be parliamentarian nor the president moved to stop this? Threatening language was used against a colleague who expressed an opinion in public comment, and colorist language was used to demean and dismiss her, tantamount to having used a racial slur. I observed an absolute lack of procedure, civility, decorum, and respect for others by the executive board. They spoke of being civil and wanting to be consulted by members, but their actions belie this. Senate meetings should be a place of discussion, of disagreement, of the airing of ideas and opinions. People should feel free to express themselves, to question things, to argue. This is a healthy sign of a working democracy. Recent Senate actions only serve to suppress such activity. Last meeting, the Vice President noted the composition of the Executive Board, all women, 3 of 4 women of color. Who could be more likely to have had the experience of being sidelined, put down, belittled, or minimized than these women? Here are your leaders in a position of power that could enable them to lead the Senate in establishing a more fair and equitable faculty situation here at PCC. Think about equity, fairness, equal opportunity for all. Lead from your power. Make the Senate a place of free discourse, of full participation by all stakeholders, of respect for the differing opinions of others. You have nothing to fear from disagreement or the free sharing of information.
Next public comment?
Dr. Zudy Bernardo.
I'm back in the Academic Senate a year after I led the vote of no confidence against Andrew Jonas. What have you accomplished of significance since then? I'm hearing crickets. Let me reintroduce myself. I am Dr. Bernardo. I am a medical doctor. I am half black. My other half is Italian. I am from New York. This is who I am. I'm facing an exec board, half of whom challenged the identity of our colleague last meeting. Instead of supporting equal treatment for adjunct faculty, what I heard was like a cabal of mean girls trying to tear someone down for mentioning how history has changed in this country. This isn't the venue for them to say all that. You know it, they know it, you said it anyway. Let me quote a fellow New Yorker Italian-American in a role that made him famous. You're out of order, you're out of order, this entire courtroom is out of order, you're supposed to stand for something. It was an assassination attempt on Tracy's identity 2 weeks ago. Amia sat up there and used her VP position, to which she was originally not even elected, to try to bully the people in this room. If you don't say things the way she likes, she is threatened to what? Call us out on our ethnic identities? President Gina, instead of asking the VP to talk in private with Tracy, joined in the bullying attack. Parliamentarian Mylan was no help either, although it's written in Robert's rules that the chair should not be shouting down or gabbling through members speaking, and she does that all the time. What they said to Tracy translates to, your pain means nothing to us. We don't even like how you expressed your pain. They said to her, you aren't allowed to feel how you feel in public. Are you all the emotions police now? You could ask Meghan Markle, with the hatred of half the British Commonwealth on her, if she feels black enough under those standards to make any mention of slavery or civil rights in this room. This President VP owe me an apology, they owe Tracy an apology, among countless others with only partial African genetic ancestry. Whom you may not count as black enough to speak on injustices in here. Who all do you think you're talking to when you said the nonsense you said in the last meeting? You cannot speak for me or to me with that colorist BS. What you're not going to do is sit there and dolezal a faculty member in the academic senate. Like VPOTUS Kamala Harris said on Friday, we're not having that. You're supposed to be our colleagues. Voting is the main thing that would help bring about adjunct faculty equity to PCC. It costs $0, but if you're against allowing adjunct faculty to participate as equal members of this institution, you are no longer our colleagues. You are our oppressors. You probably should be leading the fight to be our liberators. You're for liberatory education, but not liberatory employment. As Obama has said repeatedly, come on, man. How is your position even the least bit defensible? It isn't. How is your attitude the least bit collegial? It isn't. How is your behavior the least bit empowering? It isn't. None of these people have been knocking on your door to make appointments because they don't want to talk to you, because this is how you act. Your foolishness and the foolishness of an entire body is on display here, and if it doesn't change, that will be your legacy. I yield the floor.
Any other public comment?
Public comment.
That concludes the public comment.
Oh, sorry, I have one that I submitted at 2 o'clock or so.
Yes, Shannon Margie, I'm sorry.
Thank you, no problem. To tell you the truth, I don't relish speaking up. I don't do well with conflict, and we all know there's been a great deal of conflict in the Senate lately. However, I am an idealist, and when I feel strongly that something is right, I force myself to speak up. So thank you for listening and considering this matter. Since PCC's Academic Senate was founded in 1967, adjuncts have not been permitted to participate in faculty shared governance activities such as voting and petitions. Looking back at history, we observe the following human tendency. Before a group of people finally achieves voting rights, some, fearing change and wanting to preserve the status quo, will give reasons to justify why those without voting rights shouldn't get them. For example, during the women's suffrage movement, some argued that women had inferior brains unsuited to the rigors of voting, or that too much thinking would cause ovaries to atrophy, or that women were too weak, emotional, and irrational to be allowed to vote. Now we can see that none of these reasons were valid. We actually find them laughable, although painful as well. But we have seen that nothing bad has happened from enfranchising women. In fact, the opposite is true. Our society is much stronger and richer with the inclusion and full participation of women in our democracy. In some ways, we've come a long way since the passing of the 19th Amendment, but in others, we're still human and display human tendencies, fear of change and desire to preserve the status quo. I believe it's for this reason that some give reasons why adjuncts should continue to be barred from participating in shared governance activities like voting and petitions. But the year is 2023, and our society is slowly but surely changing to allow greater inclusion and participation of all members. Here at PCC, we pride ourselves on being progressive and valuing all voices. Simply put, continuing to disenfranchise adjuncts is just not in alignment with our values. Plus, many other colleges allow part-timers to vote in various matters of shared governance. Santa Monica College, Cabrillo College, San Jose City College, San Diego City College, Glendale Community College, LA Valley College, Grossmont College, De Anza College, Berkeley City College, and others. These colleges don't seem to be worse off for it, and I feel confident that after we bring our bylaws into alignment with our values, our faculty body will actually be stronger and richer by including all of us. Thank you.
Any more public comment?
That concludes public comment.
Okay. Now I need a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting. Do you have a motion? Okay, Sal, I saw you. Talene is the second. Are there any objections to approving them by unanimous consent? Seeing none, we have approved minutes. Okay. Constituency reports. PCCFA, Bevel, I'm going to assume since Mark's not here.
If I can. Hi, everyone. On a bit of a lighter note, I actually just came out of the latest negotiation session with the district. And the great news is that we anticipate that a new contract will be signed out this week by both parties. I am extremely eager to share the numerous victories that we've achieved for all faculty, but I will wait until the contract has been ratified by our membership. We will be having a informational meeting this Thursday, 13th April at 12:15. So you should receive a Zoom invitation in your mailbox today. So we look forward to your coming to the meeting on Thursday to get additional information in relation to our new contract. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Adjunct faculty?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Classified Senate?
No report.
No report?
Sorry, that's laryngitis.
Okay. Associated Students? Management Association? Okay. President's report. What I will say publicly is I want to thank all of the faculty, staff, administrators, and students who have reached out to the executive committee in support via email, text, or just walking through the campus. We are not alone, so I just want to put that out there for the Academic Senate. And if you are not happy with my job, please impeach me. And that's the end of my report. Vice President's report.
No report.
Secretary's report.
Yes. The Library Technology Program will be offering 3 sections of Live 1, College Research Skills, in fall 2023. This is a 1-unit course and a wonderful way for students to engage in college-level research and online tools. Topics include evaluation of information, citation styles, search strategies such as keyword brainstorming, and selecting topics for research. 2 6-week asynchronous sections and 1 8-week in-person section are now open for fall semester. Please share with your students. And the statewide Academic Senate is hosting the 2023 Spring Plenary, April 20th through April 22nd, in person at the Doubletree Hotel in Anaheim, as well as virtually. Please visit the ASCCC website for more information. That concludes my report.
Treasurer?
Yes, so I have the balances up on the screen. There's an increase in 83 cents to our business savings account, a cost of $99 from our checking account. Our total overall balance is $20,276.79 for a decrease in $98.17. I had mentioned in previous treasurer's reports that we were going to start fundraising as the contributions to both our scholarships and our Senate functions have been decreasing as of late. If you notice in the back of the room at the table by the entrance, there is a QR code. I can send this digital QR code to all senators. If you would please share with your constituents, we would greatly appreciate if we could increase those standing contributions. I believe that concludes my report unless there's any questions.
Melissa?
Is that going toward the scholarships directly, or will some of it be moved? Some go, some not?
Great question. So let me, if you go to, it's where it's going to is to the website. And if you go to the Academic Senate page, we have this red contribute button right here. And once you click on it, it asks you to sign in, and then it gives you the option of either contributing to the scholarship or to the Senate functioning, or both.
Yes.
Another question, for the scholarships, do you know yet how many students are gonna get scholarships from us?
I want to say 12, but I would have to double check the email from Peter Castro, the chair of that committee, but those will be handed out. Thank you for reminding me. after our next Senate meeting on the 24th. So if those of you would like to stay, we'll be having the Senate banquet at 5:30.
So when will we vote on how much to give for the project from our funds?
For the Senate banquet?
No, for the scholarships.
Oh, that's determined by the scholarship committee.
Our scholarship committee gets to decide how much money to take from our bank account to give.
It's a totally separate fund for scholarships.
Oh, okay, but, so it's not related to our budget?
No.
Any other questions? Okay, now we'll move on to our information items, and we'll start with our superintendent president for an update. Dr. Andrew Jones, you have the floor.
Okay, so my update is actually sort of a continuation of the public comment read by Dr. Uranga from Eloy Zarate, and it has to do with the implementation of Assembly Bill 928, which passed with the idea in mind that it was going to streamline transfer, and the whole idea was not only would it encourage more students to do associate degrees for transfer, but it would also create a single general education pattern for transfer that would be easy. So the Intersegmental Committee of the Academic Senates, also known as ICAS, started meeting about this a year ago. And there were 3 faculty from the UC Senate, the CSU Senate, as well as the community colleges. And Jenny May, who is the president of the Statewide Academic Senate, is the chair of that committee this year. And so basically what happened was a legislator, Assemblyman Berman, thought, okay, let's get a single pattern going. We'll have the 3 systems figure it out. Unfortunately, the community colleges don't have as much power at that table. So almost immediately, what was really important to the CSU was that the speech communications requirement be preserved, so it was. UC that did not have a speech communications agreed that they would do that, so CSU was really happy about that. But unfortunately, in the requirement that the transfer, that the GE pattern have no more than 34 units. It went from 39 units down to 34 units, and that meant that some classes had to come out of the areas. And so that new pattern, which was voted on, the name of it was voted on by students, it's called CalGETC, is supposed to be the streamlined pattern of general education. And by May 31st of this year, ICAS has to make a recommendation to the system of exactly what that CalGETC should look like. If they can't reach consensus, then the decision goes up to the system heads, which would be the president of the UC, the chancellor of the CSU, and the chancellor of the community colleges. Our hope is that it happens at the faculty level, because these are curriculum decisions, and they should happen at the faculty level. The problem for us as a community college system is that in the process of doing that, Area E has been taken out. And Area E is significant for community colleges because that's where all of our student success courses are, that's where our athletic and activity courses are, and that's where PE, health and nutrition are. So if CalGETC goes forward as it's been proposed, it means that none of those classes will count for general education requirements. And then also, as Dr. Uranga made a reference to, there's also conversations about getting rid of U.S. history and political science as the lower level American institutions requirement. And the solution seems to be, oh, well, we'll just make it a graduation requirement at the CSU. The problem with that is that if it's not really a transfer requirement, our students won't necessarily take those classes. They won't. Or if the CSU decides to do it at the upper level, they're not going to take our classes, they'll take them there. So that's a significant concern. Athletics is a huge concern because unlike the CSUs and the UCs, the way we pay for athletics is through instruction. We don't have a separate line item for paying for athletics, and so I'm the former chair of the California Community College Athletic Association Board, and two of my presidential colleagues and I have been working with the statewide academic senate, as well as making presentations to trustees, to legislators, to doing anything we can to help them understand the impact of losing Area E. There's also been conversation about, oh, well, those classes, they can just count for another general education area, except that that means that those other general education areas have to agree to add them into that. And so, you know, that leaves biological sciences. Is biological sciences, are those faculty necessarily going to believe that a nutrition class taught over here is the same as a biology with a lab? And so it's of huge concern. The other thing that's happening is that the UCs really want to get into the job of minimum qualifications. Just
Motion
To extend by 5 minutes.
Okay, second, Jose. Okay, are there any objections to extending this item? Got 5 minutes.
Thank you. So part of the problem too is the UCs, when they said that they were willing to let community colleges still have that speech requirement, they literally turned to some of the community college faculty and said, well, the community colleges better up their game. And right now, they're trying to add comp as a prerequisite to speech. And of course, that's an issue for us because it means then we have to validate that prerequisite. And you know, the UCs don't have those requirements, but we have the requirements. So the bottom line is that there's a lot of work going on out there about 928 because lifelong learning is not actually in Title V as required under our system, but it is part of what we do. And this section of general education is really important. The other thing is there's discussion at the CSUs and of them getting to keep CSU breadth as their requirements for students who enter into the CSU. But what that means then is that CSU students who start there, they get the 39 units, they get the full breadth, which as Dr. Uringa indicated, does include some lifelong learning. But if they come from us through Cal GETSI, they don't need those courses. And so there's a lot of advocacy going on statewide around addressing this because again, this is a faculty decision. We don't really want to kick it up to system heads to make that decision, but it's a very real concern for us. And to think about it from a financial perspective, since athletics would fall on the wrong side of 50% as it's called, it means that I wouldn't have anywhere to fund it unless the state gave us a separate line item to pay for athletics. I can tell you that in fall of 22, our enrollment in classes that would count in Area E for transferring students was 5,397 students. We generated 521 FTES, which means we got apportionment of $2.8 million through those Area E classes. And so it's real because it is about how we pay for athletics. It also impacts our most equitable, our most equity student population that we have. And this is one of those situations of legislation statewide that has unintended consequences. So I just wanted to put it onto your radar, especially as you talk to your colleagues around the state, and just know that we are doing all kinds of advocacy, trustees, legislators, whatever we can, especially because under 928, the UCs don't have to have ADTs. They don't have to have associate degrees for transfer, which was the heart of that particular bill. There is another bill coming through that is about the UCs having ADTs. That's AB 1749 that's been proposed. But in that, a student would have to have a 3.0 GPA to transfer to a UC, and they wouldn't have any guarantee that they would get to go to the UC they want to go to. Instead, there is in the bill a provision for basically helping you adjust to the fact that you didn't get into the UC you wanted to get into. So again, just wanted to put that on your radar. I know there's a lot of advocacy happening on behalf of the 24,000 student athletes who are at 110 community colleges across the state, and we're very concerned.
Are there any questions? But okay, I'll go this way. I'll start with you, Meredith.
Hi, thank you so much for this. You said that at the state level academic senate that community colleges don't have as much power. Can you talk a little bit more about that and explain why that is?
Well, it's because we're more in the K-14 system if you look under Title V. So the legislature controls a lot more of what we get to do. The UC system is in the state constitution. And so if you see a lot of educational bills that come through, what it says is the community colleges and the UCs shall, and it would be really nice if the UCs also did this because they function under a different system. So they basically, and their Senate has already approved Cal GEDC, and as far as they're concerned, it's a done deal. But from their perspective, lifelong learning isn't part of their mission or part of their offering, so they have no interest in making any changes.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Melissa.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I wasn't sure if I heard exactly what was the reasoning for...
Tracy, 5 minutes. And Lyman, I saw your hand first for a second. Are there any objections to a 5-minute extension? Okay.
What was the reasoning for this bill even coming forward? That's basically the question, because it sounds very similar to what happened, but correct me if I'm wrong, to community colleges as a result of AB 705 and the quote-unquote streamlining euphemism that resulted in cutting academic English as a second language. Is it similar? And what's the reason?
It's similar because it has similar components behind it. The Campaign for College Opportunity, which is an organization that has sponsored a lot of legislation here in the state. There is, my perspective is that there's an assumption that if there are transfer problems, they lie solely with the California Community College system, and that if we could just get our act together, everything would be fine in terms of transfer. There are a lot of legislators who have basically adopted the Campaign for College Opportunities perspective on where the problems are, that we're not streamlining, that we're delaying. So you're right, there is a very similar tone to it. Yes.
Okay, and then I saw Jose.
Hi, so I noticed that Dr. Urenga, the one who did the public comment, he mentioned that this bill would affect mathematics in some way. Do you know how it would, you mentioned mathematics and I couldn't understand.
I'm not sure, well, I thought he talked only about political science and history. I'm not sure what the reference to math was.
Nina, you mentioned?
Yeah.
I heard mathematics, so I have
Okay,
to
yeah.
read that.
You know what? I've been so focused on this piece of
Right.
it that I haven't focused on the math piece of it. But I can certainly find out.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Talene?
I think he referred to the amount of offerings that would now be
Transferable.
Because if you look at the quantitative reasoning in IGETC versus CSU, the CSU GE has more options than the IGETC.
That's right,
So the
thank
offerings
you.
will be limited.
So
There'll be less math classes.
Yeah.
Okay, were there any other questions? Yes, sorry, Sharice.
Am I allowed to add any clarity or corrections to things? So I'm the articulation officer on campus, so this is like my responsibility. And so a couple points to clarify. The American institutions that Dr. Urenga mentioned, that is currently a U.S. history and poli-sci requirement. It has never been a transfer requirement. It has always been a graduation requirement. We oftentimes advise students to take those two courses to double count for other GE areas on the CSU GE, which can be either the humanities section for the history course or the social sciences section for the political science course. So That's always been something that we try to encourage students to take before they transfer to a CSU. I think there was something at the state level where there was a misunderstanding where a lot of people got upset thinking that they were going to take that requirement away or make it an upper division GE, and the CSU has since clarified that was not the case. It was a misunderstanding. As far as the lifelong learning area, it is a 3-unit requirement on the CSU GE, but it's always been a maximum of 1 unit of kinesiology or dance able to be applied to that area. So it's not like students are taking 3 kinesiology courses to fulfill the area. I would say honestly, the majority of our students are probably fulfilling that area with College 1 since so many of our students take that class. So locally, I feel like the majority of our students who are taking kinesiology classes are taking for their major requirements or just for the sake that they want to take a dance class or a PE class. So the funding of it is a whole different thing that I'm not aware of. But just so you know that no one could fulfill that area with just PE classes. And so, like what it was mentioned, the pattern has been decided on by by ICUS with the different areas and how many units will be applied to each area. And now they're working out the details of what the standards are for each area and what the grade requirements will be. So that C versus a D is still on the table. None of those decisions have been finalized yet. But as it's mentioned, UC has more pull because they have less legislation, so everyone is anticipating it's going to go in that direction. But those are still in the works. But the pattern itself has been up to this point finalized.
And thank you for the clarification on the CSU, because I had actually seen it spoken by the interim chancellor, Jolene Kester, that was something that she was working on. So that's where my information came from. But if there's been a clarification, that's awesome, because that was, she said, well, why do we even need that? And that was really disconcerting. So I'm glad to hear that's been clarified.
And one more thing, sorry.
We're out of time. Sorry, we have additional, but we've reached our limit on extensions. If you have questions, please email Dr. Andrew Jonas or Shadi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. All questions and clarifications welcome. Just want to make sure we get the right thing.
Okay. Our next information item is an instruction update by Dr. Ramirez. Go ahead.
My understanding is with the extensions of time, I know we run out of time for a normal 3, but if there's something we really want to hear about, we as a body can suspend those meeting rules, and we could do more if we wanted to, but.
I need to research that. Go ahead, Dr.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you all. So I just have a few brief updates. Hiring prioritization committee for 2024 has started, so please make sure if you have not heard from your dean or your department chair, the applications are available. It's done through Anthology. They're due May 12th. So again, this is for 2024. Our current round of hiring is moving forward, so we've already engaged in a few second-level interviews that'll be presented to the board in a few weeks. Summer schedule, so we're working on a 4-10 schedule potentially to have most of our programming done Monday through Thursday, 4-10s. There are some programs that will still be open on campus and available. The campus is not necessarily completely closed, but more information to come about that. I wanted to share that one of our very own faculty, Dr. Jillian Bellotti, is being recognized at Stanford University on May 1st as a Distinguished Woman in Science Award. So great kudos to PCC and the work that she's doing. That is amazing. Our enrollment, so you know our summer enrollment, we opened up registration early, so that's really good. We're at about 9,000 enrollments today, but we still have a lot of bots. And the bots are now infiltrating our in-person classes as well. So please be vigilant. Share the information as much as you can. Student Services is working double time, triple time to investigate and look into the bot situation. But that's really important that we keep up with that. And then finally, on April 22nd, the PCC photography program will be hosting the first ever William G. Erickson photography competition and scholarship event. So the event and the competition are funded through a generous gift from the William G. Erickson Foundation. The PCC Foundation and Visual Arts, Media Studies, and Library Division work closely with the foundation to coordinate the event. Competition prizes will total over $20,000 in scholarships. Judges include photographers Ireland Isaiah, as well as PCC photography faculty Chris O'Leary. And we're looking forward to featuring over 60 student works in the Boone Family Art Gallery, so please be there. The display is available April 17th, so please support our students.
Okay, questions for Dr. Ramirez? I saw you, Dr. Stevens.
Hi, do we know what time on April 22nd and what location?
I can forward that event to you. I can forward that information.
Thank you so much. My second question, and then I just have one more quickly. You said 9,000 students enrolled. Are we talking about our current enrollment for spring or our summer enrollment?
Summer, 9,000 enrollments, not necessarily students,
Right.
but individual enrollments, yes.
Thank you. And then my last question is, which departments will be open on Friday if we go to the 410s?
We're going to create that list, so I'm working on the instruction side. We'll have something on the student services side that we'll share it out
I
as
just
well.
want to advocate for tutoring because a lot of students have
Yes.
had concerns and asked about tutoring for summer.
Yes, I know. We're working on making sure that at the very least our math success center is open, and if we need additional, we can support as well.
Thank you, because that's exactly what students are asking.
Okay, are there any other questions for Dr. Ramirez? Yes, Melissa?
Just to make sure, 9,000 enrollments include both credit and non-credit
Yes.
enrollments?
Yes, Karen.
How would the 410s work for 35-hour non-instructional faculty? Do we know that?
So the requirement is really for our CFT staff. So as far as faculty, that's something that we'll work out on a case-by-case basis. So for example, in the health sciences, we still have faculty that are here Monday through Friday because that's the way the program's scheduled. And if it's for employees that are 11-month employees, you need to work with your dean to come up with a schedule.
Okay, yes, Tully.
Will this be a trend for future intersessions?
I don't know. We're gonna try it and see how it goes.
Yes, Melissa?
This actually goes back as a question back about the AB 928. Could the social sciences faculty, like we did in credit ESL, could they revamp their courses with different unit load and all of that? Would that be a way, do you happen to know if that is an avenue?
So,
getting around this?
So when we're talking about unit load, you're talking about them decreasing their units?
Well, just doing something with CNI and their courses. Could they do, I'm not.
So there's a lot of different factors that go into that. For example, articulation. So if the course is transferable, the four-year institutions look at not only how many units, if it's a lab, if it's a lecture. So it's not something that they can just do arbitrarily. There's a lot of background work I think that they would have to look into. So again, the units has to do with a lot of different parts that go along with our curriculum, specifically articulation.
Okay, are there any other questions? Otherwise, we'll need to extend this. I don't see any other questions, so thank you, Dr. Ramirez. Okay, next information item is presented by Dr. Miriam Altuji.
Hi, everybody. Here to welcome and introduce you to our new VP of Student Services, Dr. Brenda Ives.
Hi, y'all. This is the shortest you'll ever hear me. Trust me, I'm very long-winded. Well, I know y'all have a timer, so appreciate that. Just wanted to say hi, and thank you for the support and warm welcome for those that I haven't met yet. I'm looking forward to connecting, so do reach out. Miriam has a presentation, and we'll go from there, but good afternoon, y'all. Yeah.
What's your name? Can you repeat it? I didn't get it.
Oh, my name? Brenda Ivelisse. Brenda Ivelisse. IVE. Yes, thank you.
All right, I'm trying to log myself in as quickly as I can to pull up my little presentation. But as Dr. Ramirez mentioned, we have about a little over 9,000 students enrolled for summer. As for the bots, since that's our hot topic since last week, I'm working with ITS to run about 13,000 students through a system that we're using to identify them. We're hoping to have anyone who's identified, they get an email once they're flagged, once they have a hold placed on them, and then they have 3 days to contact us And I have to give a huge shout out to the folks in A&R who have been working on processing those requests and clearing students that are truly real people. The other things that I wanted to go over today are, can I just pause real quick? Does anyone else have questions about bots while I'm talking about it? And I'm being very vague on purpose because this is all live streamed, so we don't need to be sharing a lot of details.
I guess I'll just say one. If we suspect a student of potentially being a bot, do we still just do the same process as we were made aware of in the beginning of spring?
Yes, it's exactly the same process. I was hoping not to get to this point where we had to deal with it after enrollment, but here we are.
Yeah, take away my question. I'm just kidding.
No, it's a valid question. It's the same process, I'm trying. We tried, and then we're gonna keep trying for fall. Hopefully, it won't be as bad. But again, there's so many things to log into. Should have done this before. Sorry about that. As we continue to sort of refine our process, we'll keep you guys all posted. But please keep those coming to us so that we can continue to flag folks once they're in your classes. So I've gotten a lot of my full section has bots in it now. So that's what we've been sort of working from.
I'm sorry, Melissa.
Forgive my ignorance. Why are these bots showing up? Is it to take financial aid away or just be rude?
Yes.
All of the above?
Yep. I mean, primarily it's financial aid related, I think, and so they're just trying to hunt down wherever they can get funds, and if we don't catch them before we disperse them, those funds get dispersed. So, again, trying to work hard. So just an update, this is as of moments ago, we have just under 10,000 students enrolled for summer, that is credit and non-credit. Our programs are still looking for potential students who have planned courses for summer and trying to follow up with them, students who have registration errors as they're going through the processes and stuff, so we're really trying to be as proactive with the student registration process as we can. If students need help, I just kind of want to point you all in the direction of the Get Help page. We have a bunch of different ways that students can access services, and one of them is virtual, some are in person, and then so our FYE center is always open, whether a student is FYE or not, to support through the registration process. For in-person, they can come to the info desk that's right here in the CC building, or walk into the L building, or also go to the FYE center. And then virtually, we have our virtual support center that's supported by a lot of folks across the college. We serve about 100, 150 students a day. So students, if they can avoid having to drive out to the campus to get support, have been using that. And then for our non-business hours, we have a call center that they can call into, and if anything needs to be escalated, it gets escalated. I did want to mention our FYE folks are hot out at our high schools trying to recruit, and so.
I need a motion to extend. Margaret, I saw your hand first. Jose, is there a second for 5 minutes? Okay, are there any objections to extending this item by 5 minutes? Seeing none, have an additional 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I just wanted to give you an overview of what our FYE students go through. So right now I mentioned December 1st was when the application opened. Our outreach staff have been going out to the high schools and doing application workshops and financial aid workshops and just working through the process. New student counseling has been happening now at the high school, so that's the next phase in the process. So all of these steps that you see when a student looks at FYE to apply, these are sort of the steps that they have to complete, but we do a lot of going out to the students to try to help them through all of these steps. Our next big thing is going to be our open house, which is on May 20th. It's on a Saturday. It's a big event. We invite all of our new student applicants who are potentially FYE students to come meet our resources be welcome to the college. We do a big presentation about the different programs on campus and financial aid, and we have a lot of resources sort of available for them on that day. If you come across students out in the community and want to point them in our direction, I will never be shy about getting out there, but share the website with them for FYE. And certainly this date, even if they just show up, we'll be all over the quad on May 20th. If you want to just tell them to come, we'll take them. We'll be happy to help them out. And that's it for me.
Any questions for Dr. Alcindor?
Are you a bot?
Not yet.
You are out of order.
I play one on TV.
I am out of order.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Alcindor. Okay, moving right along, we have item number 5, which is academics and a disciplinary. 4, I'm sorry, academics and a disciplinary update by Dr. Rhodes.
Hello again. So I wanted to clarify some of Robert's rules. I'm sure most of you do not spend your weekends reading this volume. And so I wanted to clarify some differences between the role of the chair and the role of the assembly when it comes to having a functional meeting. So Robert's Rules was designed so that assemblies were able to get their work done, and so they do have processes in place for disciplining members of the assembly who are making it challenging for us to do our work. So here's a direct quote from Robert's Rules of Order. An organization or assembly has the ultimate right to make and enforce its own rules and to require that its members refrain from conduct injurious to the organization or its purposes. No one should be allowed to remain a member of his, I put the sick in there, that's the gender pronoun that's used in the original, if his retention will do this kind of harm. So for clarification, the chair, the presiding officer, in our case, President Gina Lopez, has a role in making sure that our meetings run efficiently. You can see that all members present have an obligation to obey the legitimate orders of the presiding officer. So that is one of our responsibilities as member of this assembly, is that when our officer has made a judgment call, that we follow that. So if someone is out of order for a slight breach, the chair, Dr. Lopez, points out the fault and advises the member to avoid repeating it. If there is a more serious breach, so here's an example, repeatedly questions the motives of other members, then the chair calls the member to order. And then what's defined as an obstinate or grave breach of order, the chair names the member, and then the secretary would write down what's happening. So that's the role of the chair. And I think we witnessed Dr. Lopez fulfilling her role very proficiently at all of our meetings. What I think has been missing is the role of the rest of the members in establishing and maintaining order in this space. So, of course, if the member follows the instructions of the chair, the case can be resolved by an apology or a withdrawal of objectionable statements or remarks. However, if that does not happen, then there are some steps that the members of the assembly, which is the other senators, can take. So first we can make a motion for an apology. Censure, and I want to clarify that censure is a statement of formal disapproval. It has nothing to do with censoring people, right? They just happen to be spelled similarly, but they're very different concepts. Another motion that can be made is for someone to be required to leave the hall for the remainder of the meeting. Membership rights can be temporarily suspended. And then kind of the highest level of penalty is expulsion from the organization permanently. Okay? And then sometimes we have questions about whether a simple majority vote is needed or a 2/3 majority vote is needed. So expulsion does require a 2/3 vote, but all other penalties are a simple majority vote. Okay, any questions about any of these steps that we as an assembly could potentially be taking?
No questions? Yes, Russell.
So in terms of these things, any senator could make at any time
Yes,
a motion for any one of these things.
yes. Yeah, they're not a progression, like you have to start with one. Thank you.
Is that a hand, Tracy?
Yeah, I'm perplexed because you seem to be sharing information. I understand the role of the chair, but it still doesn't seem equitable if a member of the executive board verbally attacks somebody, and then I have no protection from the president. I have no protection from somebody who sits on an anti-racist policy, and not one person in this room stood up. I just feel like, why are we doing this today? I don't understand. Why are we really doing this today? The timing's unbelievable.
I can answer that.
Yes, please.
We've received several emails from faculty members, some in this room, requesting that we know what steps can be taken when people, sorry?
Extension by 5 minutes.
5 minutes, is that a second? Okay, are there any objections to the extension? 5 minutes. We received lots of email from people in this room and faculty across campus asking what can be done in order to maintain the order because they felt that my leadership is being disrespected. So they wanted to know what can be done.
I support that, and I support that your leadership and that everybody should be respected. But unfortunately, you wear the big hat. You've got all the responsibility to make sure that respect is equal across the board. Your colleague called me white passing. I did not sleep 2 weeks ago Monday night.
Okay.
I did not sleep. It was hurtful. It was mean. And you didn't say anything.
Okay, so that's not what we're talking about right now. I tried, Tracy, since we're putting it out there, I specifically said, let's talk about this. Let's have a conversation. I haven't seen you yet.
Well,
And
I got an email from your colleague. No
Okay.
email.
Well, here, yet and still, this is not what we're talking about.
Okay.
You have
All
a
right.
question about this?
My apologies.
That's
The
fine.
timing was odd. to
Timing
me.
is quite appropriate based on what we've gotten in from other people.
Okay, you're entitled to your opinion.
Next. I'm sorry,
I had a question.
Carmen.
Thank you. So all members, including the executive board, so the treasurer, secretary, VP could also do, okay.
Yes, all members of the assembly.
Yes, Melissa.
First, thank you for bringing this forward and for making it nice and big, because it's hard to see. It'd be nice to get copies of this for everybody. And also, I know you summarized it, and there's a lot of in the weeds in the Roberts Rules
Yes.
book. But maybe you can make photocopies, because not everybody has the actual Roberts Rules.
Sure.
But perhaps you can make actual copies of those pages that you're referencing, because I'm looking at something that says formal disciplinary procedures should generally be regarded as a drastic step reserved for serious situations or those potentially so. When it appears that such measures may become necessary, proper and tactful handling of the case is of prime importance. It is usually in the best interest of the organization first to make every effort to obtain a satisfactory solution of the matter quietly and informally. And there are more in the weeds here, but could we get copies of the latest?
Absolutely. And I think what you're quoting is referring to a formal trial. So, which is a next step beyond what happens at a meeting.
I also wanted to say that we offered, hold on, we offered everyone the opportunity to purchase, to get a Roberts Rule book at our expense. That offer is still open. What you can do is purchase the book, bring us the receipt, and we'll have you reimbursed. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to finish, yeah, this book has been great because it's in easy language. But no, just to correct you, that what I quoted is not part of the trial situation. The trial is when there are offenses elsewhere than in a meeting. There's a whole process there. But But while this book is good, it doesn't go into the actual language, so maybe, again, if you could get copies. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Rose.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have a parliamentarian update by Mylan Ears.
So in light of all that's been going on,
I'm sorry if this is not time for public comment.
I was under the impression you can make a public comment on any particular agenda item at that particular time.
That's during public comment.
A comment on the agenda.
Okay, we're not allowing that. I would need to research that because what we do normally is what I'm gonna do now. So if we have to come back and I'm wrong about that, I'll come back and be wrong about that. But as it stands, we're not allowing it. Go ahead. If it's about this, I've already made a decision.
Well, then I appeal the ruling of the chair because I believe like at the Board of Trustees meetings and every city meeting, every agenda item has a built-in public comment to it.
Like I said, excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but like I said, I have to research that, and right now, we're going what we've always done, and we don't allow public comment in the middle of our agenda. We have a section for public comment, and that's where I'm standing. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to talk about some other methods in Robert's rules, but I think it's most appropriate. The intention of Robert's rules, notwithstanding the Brown Act, the intention of Robert's rules is to allow bodies to come together and get things done. And the larger the body, the more difficult that is, right? More people need to be heard, more opinions are garnered, more support is garnered, there's information passed back and forth, we have to research things. So those are what the rules are for. And I implore everyone that's a member of this Senate, taking at face value that you believe in the mission of the Academic Senate and that your selfless service is to make this a better place for faculty and for the students. So please adhere to the decorum. There's a spirit of the law and there's the letter of the law, right? The letter of the law, you shall stop before the limit line at any stop sign, right? The spirit of that law is so that people don't just come through stop signs and they look left and right and people go through safely. So if you go 3 inches over the limit line, yes, technically you violated the letter of the law, but did you violate the spirit of the law? And that's where judgment, right? Judgment, we exercise judgment comes into play. And I spent almost 26 years enforcing the law as a police officer, and I would have to exercise my judgment at that time. And the support from voting has been given to the E-Board, right, to exercise judgment at times. And as the parliamentarian, I'm asking you to allow them to do that. If there is egregious, like Melissa spoke to, it talks about egregious things, making discipline the last resort when we haven't been able to iron things out. That is what the rules are for, right? And so, again, I take everyone at face value that your intentions are pure here. You're representing the bodies that sent you here. And so do that. And then allow us to facilitate that. Allow me as the parliamentarian to try to keep things in order. I mean, Robert's rules, Melissa was right. That is an abridged version. The actual book is very thick. And you could have a 2-year degree on Robert's rules and still probably not know every single one. But the point of them is not to do that, not to look through and find, hey, I get to do this and I get to do this. If that doesn't serve the greater good for the people you represent, your peers in here, and then ultimately our students, which is why we all work in education, because we believe in students. And so that's what I offer you as your parliamentarian update today, is to look inward and say, hey, am I doing what I originally, I used to tell my officers what you originally took your oath to do. I know we don't really take an oath, but why you chose this profession. And I yield my time.
Thank you. Any questions for our parliamentarians? Okay, moving forward. We have old business. I don't know why named the gavel. Old business, APBP 3400, anti-racism with Armenia Walker and Lindsay Ruiz.
Yes, and Carmen Stevens is joining us.
And Carmen
Dr.
Stevens.
Stevens.
You guys can talk for a minute. Okay, thank you.
So this is the third read, I believe, and we are hoping for a yes vote at some point. So if there's any other feedback, now that you've had some weeks to look at it, have you heard from your constituents or anything? Any feedback for us?
Oh,
Yes.
yes, Russell.
Just to get started, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve, and is that a second, Margaret? Okay, all those, are there any discussion on this? Yes, Melissa?
Just, I think you might have answered this before, but I know the definitions will be moved elsewhere.
Through the Office of IEDJ.
Okay, and if those are just kind of informational, is that what it is?
Right, correct.
Okay, and then
That was one of the biggest forms of feedback that we got starting on Professional Development Day, was that people wanted definitions of these terms.
yes, definitely. And will those definitions grow? Because, culture changes and definitions change.
In fact, that's the exact reason why it's going to live on a website. Right. Because if we had to come back and change a definition, for example, it was updated, or we want to add to it, this way we can just update the website, and we don't have to go back through and re-approve the entire APBP.
And what will be it's going to live on the IEDJ website, but does the Senate have purview over that website for our committee to then make changes later?
We're working.
What would be the process?
Yeah, we're working in compliance, like we're working together on this. And so if we were to say, we need to update it, then we would let them know and they would update it for us.
And they would just do it like that?
Yeah. That's the idea that I got. That's how we've been approaching this with Carrie Boland.
Could also, just throwing this out there, and this might be a little bit off topic, but we could obviously discuss it later, but maybe the Senate could have its own page too. But anyway, but I support the policy, thank you.
Just so you know, Melissa, Dr. Boland will be here next meeting, and you might want to pose that question to her too.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, so seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please do so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, we have an anti-racist.
I just want to thank everyone, because we as a group have been working on this ever since Matt was in office, so we appreciate your support.
That is awesome. Yes, okay. So now we'll move on to new business. I've been told that our APBP 7800 is not quite ready, so I'm looking for a motion to table this till our next meeting. Lyman, I see your hand. Is there a second? Russ, I see your hand as a second. Are there any objections to tabling this to the next meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Sorry. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so Crystal, you still have the floor for the rescinding of APBP 5051.
I go where Crystal goes.
Okay.
Do you want us to pop this up if we can find it? Or do you? Sure. Okay.
This is the assessment?
Yes. Sure. Okay. You give context, I'll try to find it.
That was fun and awkward. So this is the AP on assessment, and we don't have assessment anymore.
Yeah.
So we're trying to pull it from the AP list. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There it is.
Oops, there it is.
So that's sort of the context, but if anyone has questions about rescinding the AP and the DP. Yeah, more? You want more? So we used to have, we used to do placement. And we, since AB 705, that's no longer part of our process. We're using directed self-placement or self-placement processes in order for students to place into ESL, English, and math. We're also using multiple measures through the high school grades and things like that. And so we're using just different mechanisms to help students take what we hope are going to be the right math, English, and ESL courses. So right now that process lives in the online orientation. If a student isn't placed through high school math and English, like grades and GPA, and which has shown that students are better placed based on their high school performance. If they're not placed on that, they can take through the online orientation process, then they get a recommendation of what courses in math, English, or ESL they can take. And so that's been our process. We used to have an office of assessment, and it is gone. We used to have a director of assessment, and that's gone because we're just not doing placement the way that we used to do it with like AccuPlace or anything like that.
That's really good.
Oh, thank you. It was better than my bullet list of items.
Are you ready for questions? Or no?
Just the last thing I want to say is we very rarely do this. I think I've been here a long time. This is only the second time I've tried to rescind something. It's a very rare occurrence. And it doesn't mean that because we're rescinding it now, that it can't come back sometime in the future in another form if something else happens. It's just that this particular policy and procedure is no longer applicable right now.
Okay.
Now we'll take questions.
Thank you. Sharice, and then Carmen. Lyman, did I see your hand? Okay. And then go ahead, Sharice.
I recognize that we do multiple measures for the English and math, but what about the chemistry? Like we had the Calvin diagnostic exam, and I think the AP even mentions the Myers-Briggs and Strong Interest Inventory that the Friedman Center uses.
Yeah, so they're still using those, but it doesn't call for like a whole. It's not a service. Like it's a service that's offered through those entities already. This is more like, remember the assessment center? Right. Yeah, we never really assessed those things through that space. And then also with regards to chemistry, it's on their website. It's completely automated at this point. It doesn't need humans to manage it other than the folks in NatSci. So Shalita's been great about trying to follow up. She's got the mechanism to do that now. So it lives in NatSci now.
So the other thing is that by rescinding it, it doesn't mean that these things can't still happen. It just means that they happen in a different way. And it actually gives more control to the departments that do it.
Okay, Carmen?
That was the exact same question I had, so I will wait for my question because I was just going to motion to approve, but I think other people had questions.
Okay, Melissa?
Two questions. What about in non-credit, there's, like today my students went to get CASAS testing. Does this fall under there at all?
No, not directly, but it's an excellent question because we know there's some work going on in non-credit right now about placement testing. And when that happens and they're ready, we'll have that conversation of whether they need to put it in a policy or procedure or if non-credit can just handle this on their own.
Okay, and then, so since the college is no longer doing assessment as it's described here anymore, what about, and obviously we are doing various forms of placement for different departments. Is there currently a placement policy or no?
It's not, yeah, it's not.
It's one of the things that I think really needs to be what I would say locally controlled by the division or department because they understand what they're looking for in their students and really prefer that faculty take this on and figure it out than us as administrators saying, this is what you gotta do.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay.
Was that it?
Okay. Well, we can either extend by 5 minutes or someone can make a motion. Is that Lyman?
Oh, I'm making a motion.
Motion to approve?
Rescind.
To rescind, thank you so much.
Well, to approve.
To approve the rescinding of. No, okay, Margaret, was that
that your second?
I'll second it.
Okay, let me put it out there again. The motion is to approve rescinding APBP 5051. We've had our discussion. Are there any objections to approving this by unanimous consent? Okay, seeing no objections, you can rescind it.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that.
Okay, item J, subcommittee appointments. I need a motion to approve this candidate for the Accreditation Standing Committee. Yes, motion to approve. Motion to approve, do I have a second? Talene, second? Okay, is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? No abstentions? Okay. Are there any future agenda items? Yes.
Yes, I'd like us to have a discussion about adjunct faculty representation in the Academic Senate.
Okay. Yes, Melissa.
It's not really an agenda item, but it could be an item. We've heard from the Management Association that has fun wine tastings and face painting parties, and that might be nice for all of us, 23, 24 members of the Senate, to have some kind of social too, and maybe kick off the summer break on a good foot. So I was wondering if that could be arranged, if you guys could kind of organize that for us. Or if, you need help.
We'll call the Senate and get back to everyone and let you know. Yes.
Could we have someone from the calendar committee come back?
I can see what I can do. Our next meeting is our last meeting. And we are a little backed up on some things, but I will do my best to get the calendar committee in and to bring up the topic of adjunct faculty. In regards to the
I had some colleagues here asking about the winter intersection and for the future, the next couple of years, if we have some say.
Here's something else I would recommend too. When Dr. Ramirez comes in to do her report, that would be a great time to ask if she's who we have to come in.
Great, thank you.
Okay? Or you could even email her, but I'll still see if I can get them to come for the meeting. Okay? Thank you for that. Yes, Lindsay.
Are the bylaws coming back?
I don't think they've met in enough time. I don't know that they have a meeting coming up. I can find out.
Okay, because I had some comments from my department.
Okay. Okay, I would also forward that to John Henry. Okay, anyone else?
I'm sorry, Nadia's bringing to my attention that there was another consent item on board docs for James Shamus.
Okay, it's not on my agenda.
It's on the board.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so I would need a motion to approve Danny Chamas, Natural Sciences, for the Academic Freedom and Professional Ethics Committee. Yes, Russ. Is that a second, Lyman? Okay, are there any objections to approving this by unanimous consent? Seeing none, this person is approved. Thank you for the you. Okay, now we have, any announcements?
Just a quick question, who was that, which committee was that to again?
It was
Academic and professional ethics.
Thank you. Okay, announcements?
Oh, yes. We'll have our first ever Black Prom on the 21st. We are soliciting faculty to be chaperones. You don't have to be Black to go to the Black Prom. You just have to know how to dance. That's a requirement.
Not true. You can hold up the wall with me.
No, I'm not a great dancer either, but I have to go. We also have Black Grad the same night, so it will flow from Black Grad at 5 p.m. And then at 7 p.m., Black Prom will be in the Lancers Pass. You are all welcome to come. We'll have light refreshments. We'll have a photo booth, a DJ. So, yeah, it'll be really nice. We want to do something nice for students because a lot of them didn't have a prom due to the pandemic. And this is in line with the other winter formals and the LGBTQ prom that they had recently.
Okay.
What does chaperoning entail?
Chaperoning entails dressing nice and having fun. because these are adults, we're not really chaperoning them.
It's an excuse for you to come have fun with us.
Come out and let students see faculty that, you know, will get down with them and have fun. That's it.
Are there any other announcements? Okay, Russ,
Make a motion to adjourn.
are there, a second? Do we have a second?